Okay, first of all, are we in a situation where somebody is taking something that was supposed to be a part of a follow-up report to Congress based upon a earlier request for a formal investigation, but that I understand was instead allowed to be misapplied and misappropriated to be used as illegal underwriting on bond issues? And not only bond issues, but I anticipate bond issues connected to paradigms that also availed themselves of expropriated reporting that was also used on illegal insurance underwriting, including for bonds, right? And that's why there was an acknowledgement of the Department of Justice receiving a more than 300-page package that was meant to be a formal request for assistance in a criminal RICO investigation and prosecution, and yet was allowed to be put into a pipeline connected to no less than 3 judgments in cases concerning the same insurance company regarding bankruptcies on bond issues, right? Just make sure we get the context correct, because then it might say something about the reference to a pass through. What's a pass through? Let me ask you a question before we get to pass throughs. How much gas and oil has been produced in Honduras in the last 20 years? According to the CIA fact book, at least up through 2018, zero. There's zero gas and oil production in Honduras itself, at least as the CIA fact book reports in consideration of domestic gas and oil production from Honduras. How many people have concessions for gas and oil leases in Honduras? How many people have concessions connected to mineral leases in Honduras regarding gas and oil production that doesn't have to occur in Honduras? Is that one of the major distinctions in terms of where the people that are amassed on the US-Mexico border actually are at, whether they're in Mexico versus in the United States, versus whether or not they've applied for asylum in Mexico before coming across the border, or they've made it across the border and have been able to make it to a municipality that has sanctuary city in a state that has its own laws regarding mineral leases and mineral rights and gas and oil production. Because it makes a difference, right? And so are we going through a process right now that there's a very, very, very important time frame wherein the United States was required to be involved with specific kinds of asset sharing or offloading or transfer or some other paradigm that has been ongoing for the last 3 years that nobody wanted to address directly, connected to timelines associated with the decommissioning of the Soviet Union. And there was just, is it true that the Biden administration just announced that he was suspending the former presidential term oil and gas drilling leases in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge? Now, at the time, this was important, right? And there was a lot going on. What else was going on in connection with that? Well, there was that information about the Transcontinental Railroad, right? Along the coast of Alaska. At exactly 6 months before a major timeline connected to a 40-year audit report connected to the railroad sector. Now, we know what happened with that. The day before the 40th anniversary, what happened? National expropriation as opposed to war crimes or Holocaust reparations, disability, workers' comp, retirement. Okay, that's the level they wanted to put that 40-year at. Right? As opposed to talking about the difference between the accounting systems that were addressed in that audit that had its 40th anniversary the day after those decisions. They put it between 2 different cases on national expropriation connected to Holocaust assets associated with benefits, retirement benefits, and rather disability for somebody eligible for benefits from and as a member of the railroad sector. This makes a difference, right? And so in the course of that, now we're at this point here. So are we having a problem here because somebody wants to negotiate Mexican royalties and Mexican rates on Honduran assets? Is this really what's going on? Are we having a problem with being honest about what is being brokered? Because it does make a difference, right? It makes a big difference if you go with one model versus another model. And if we never talked honestly about what all of this entails, then we get into a very serious situation with that. So apparently the characterization is what? What is the major heavy underlying? That would be connected to the Mexican gas and oil sector. Was it intentionally sabotaged on December 12th of 2019? And I'm not talking about COVID-19, but that's what you want delivered. You exported the head of the Mexican military to Dallas so that he could be wrapped around through the Department of Justice and then re-exported to Mexico. Is what I just provided a appropriate characterization of what you're expecting as the kind of production? And is there some disputation because the deal for the production was arranged or negotiated with one understanding of what the yield was going to be? And now there is an attempt to try to compel a purchase of production that is nothing comparable to what was originally promised and agreed to? You mean like that other case that just had its anniversary? I see. Okay. So here's the thing about the Alaskan Wildlife Refuge. So would I have to agree and authorize the murder of those 43 teachers from Ayotzinapa that the cartel had strategically kept as insurance in a state of disappearance in order to maintain the ambiguity that they might still be alive, to use this leverage in a successful accomplishment of engaging teachers within the United States to co-conspire in abject refusal to actually respect what was the struggles of teachers in countries like Mexico? See, when teachers in the United States try to broker better packages for their municipal operations, it's very different than when the teachers in Mexico go on the streets and protest for weeks at a time against the national government and have to deal with in the street, on site negotiation with law enforcement. It's a lot different than flipping ISD bonds in your municipality while your students are on the streets and assembly, potentially engaging in some sort of altercation with the police, than the entire national education sector going on general strike and confronting directly the actual power structure as a block. This is completely different. So, trying to use the stockpile of possibilities that without the actual confirmation that the bodies of those teachers have been produced dead, they might still be alive, being harvested somewhere as part of a unique cryptocurrency, is very significant, right? I mean, those teachers may not have been liquidated when Ted Cruz went down there. They may not have been, but they may also have been, right? And so now, if we're talking about this very high risk situation where somebody accused a former Secretary of State, who also happens to be a former senator, and happens to be a former First Lady of the United States, and happens to be a former First Lady of the state of Arkansas, of being involved with crime, including very high profile, organized crime that had international ramifications, and that was specifically connected to